Welcome back once again to the World Championship Series Challenger North America. I'm Nathanius, and boy oh boy, have we had some fun games of StarCraft. Let's take a look at the action that's transpired so far, shall we? We had MaSa take a deft win quickly. Cicada surprising Panda Bear Me, who was able to recover after defeating Starkiller in the match that we just went through. Panda Bear Me awaits the loser of our next series. It's Cicada versus MaSa. You're watching the World Championship Series. I'm joined here by the finest gentleman I've ever met in esports. Right up there with Roddy. His name is Katz. How are you, Katz?
You got me pumped.
Yeah, we got the energy going.
Oh, hell's yeah.
Ooh. In Control's not here to make me laugh so much that like I'm just like flowing.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not funny enough for you, Nate.
Okay. You bring the knowledge.
Though.
It's hard to compete. I'm not going to say anyone competes with Jeff.
No one can.
No one can. But the ZvZ is not his. It's not his bag of chips. We have the rest of our schedule laid out quite nicely. We're gonna have MaSa against Cicada, and then the loser of that versus Panda Bear Me. So I think it goes to safe to say that we see MaSa as the group favorite. He comes across. He's very good. Performance and results-wise, he's leagues ahead of everybody else that's competing in this group. But Cicada did surprise against Panda Bear Me with that 2-0.
He sure did. And Challenger is where stars are made.
That's true. Well, except for, well, yeah, except
Starkiller.
for Star Killers don't make it very far, though.
He has to kill some stars to make it.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's because in Challenger, like the stars aren't really there yet, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's more like
yeah, exactly.
He
has to make it to, yeah.
They're just still like gaseous whatevers that aren't quite stars yet. They haven't finished forming. But that's.
He's no meteor killer.
No, not yet, not yet. So we have a Terran versus Zerg. Cicada, severe underdog, formerly known as Volts. If you guys, he's played in some stuff under that name before. Not crazy big results. Probably seen him more in Twitch chats, memeing, honestly. Reddit. But he's been around for a while. He's a guy that people in NA scene know, mostly for trolling.
He's one of the most involved people, I feel like, in StarCraft, in the community. Yeah. So I feel like with his opportunity, and maybe that's why we saw the upset, he's probably the one that prepared the most, that wants to make the most out of this.
He definitely has the most to gain in this group. And I think that it's already pretty cool that he defeated Panda Bear Me. It's not a weak opponent. If he had like a good match against Starkiller, I think both of those players kind of lack that notoriety to be respected for that. But I'm impressed by Cicada's ability to beat him, and it makes me wonder if he has anything special here that he's going to try to bust out versus MaSa, if he can make anything work.
I'm sure he does. I'm sure he does have
and it
something
makes me excited.
Special. Will it work? That's a different question.
If this was the first match of this group, I would be like, well, MaSa should just stomp him. But because of the series versus Panda Bear Me, I'm more excited for this match.
We wouldn't say that because it's like, we would hype it, right? We'd be like,
of course.
I mean,
I'd hype it as much as Neeb versus Epic. Like, oh boy, guys.
Hey, Epic is pretty good, dude. I never beat Epic.
I mean, you're really good. I don't beat you very often, but if you went against Neeb, I'd be like, I'm sorry, Paolo. You know.
I actually took a game of Neeb last series we played, Nate. But thanks.
I'm sorry. I love you. We're loaded into the match. In the bottom right position, we have the blue Terran. He's MaSa.
He's massive as well. And in the top left-hand side, as the red Zerg, it's Cicada. No. Someone said it's wrong. Like we're pronouncing it wrong.
No. Maybe somebody who didn't go to school.
Yeah.
Cats. Cicadas.
What does cicada mean?
Cicadas are insects that like burrow for really long amounts of time. I don't know if there's multiple different kinds of them, but there's like that legend about the cicadas that come out like once every X number of years. Ooh. And they're the loudest, I think. The loudest insects. Like they make.
What do they sound like?
I mean, if I could reproduce the sound, it would probably break the microphone from what I recall. But like they're known for being really loud. They make it so people can't sleep. They come out, they like do their thing where they're just really loud for a long time, and then they burrow.
I mean, you were saying mostly Cicada is found memeing on forums and trolling. Do you think that's where he got his name from? Then?
He's like
just really loud and.
Yeah, I guess that's one way to do it. It's like a locust, you know, like the locust wave comes out and then it's gone, and you gotta wait for the next one. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're not just there all the time.
Yeah, but will he prevail and make it further to be there all the time?
That's the question, I guess.
We'll find out.
SCV Scout from MaSa. I think versus Volts or versus Cicada, that's a smart thing to do. You don't want to get caught off guard by like because although we're not seeing it, like Cicada definitely the type of player that could do like that one base Ravager rush, which if it catches you off guard is really strong still.
Yeah, and important to note is that most players will follow their patterns, and Cicada was watching MaSa versus Starkiller, and Starkiller actually delayed the CC of MaSa with just 2 circlings on this map. So if Cicada thought, well, MaSa is not going to scout on this map because he doesn't scout on this map, or because there's a high chance that he didn't, just like last game, then he could have very well gone for something similar.
Yeah, we have the 1 Marine follow up there. I like that you can still see in the overlay. You can still see his you can see his APM. He's using that remastered Zerg interface.
Very powerful.
Yeah, it's clean.
Is the APM only in the remaster? Because that's the one I use.
It's in the Galactic Celebration one as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I have.
Funnily enough, this used to be one of my favorite complaints from Zerg players, was that when StarCraft 2 came out, their interface was actually the biggest. But the remastered Zerg interface is the same size as the other ones, so you can see more of the game screen actually.
Oh, really?
You use the remastered ones. The Terran one is the smallest in the game though. Terran OP.
Terran OP.
Yeah. So the Reaper comes and pokes. This map doesn't have a ramp into the main or any backdoor area, so the Reaper can't really do anything anymore. You're just trying to deny the drone from making it to the 3rd base, but the Queens are going to keep it from running through, hopefully.
Yeah, and we've seen Terran players kind of just fall into this style. It's just safe. It's just something that they're comfortable with, independent of there being room for extra maneuvering from the Reapers or not.
Yep. And the Reaper goes, checks the 3rd base again, makes sure there was no drone that snuck out. I think also worth mentioning at this point, MaSa's doing the same thing he did on this map last time in the first match of the day. He's gone for this crazy fast 3rd command center that's going to line up with his starport finishing. He's getting a few Hellions. And I think that means we're just going to see him eventually transition into that bio. We saw that the advantage that Starkiller had versus MaSa when they played on this map was that his upgrades are very delayed by this because he wants to get early tech, but he also wants to get a fast 3rd command center. And having units means, of course, he's got to cut somewhere, and that's going to be his upgrades. And we saw that that was really nice for the upgrades for Starkiller. But which way is Cicada going to go with it? He's taking the 3rd a bit faster. He's got his lair on the way.
He wants to macro up. I mean, he made extra queens, so he can't really be aggressive on demand, right? Like, there's a lot of investment there that he can't actually just take to the other side of the map. He's going to have a lot of creep spread to go along with that. He has a very defensive setup with his overlords, if we look at it. His vision is just around his base, that he will probably push those overlords forward as he expands. So I really like his defensive setup, but it pretty much screams defense.
Yeah. And he sees that everything's just kind of moving along normally at the natural expansion of MaSa. There's nothing really crazy here, no big assortment of units. He does see the Banshee, which is going to provide high ground vision. It's that safety Banshee again, which we've seen MaSa has been doing. He just gets 1 Banshee, no cloak. It's my, I want to poke. Helps defend against any sort of early attack.
Yeah, but this game it's not doing so much more, and I think that that's a little bit of a giveaway. The fact that, he wasn't moving it, he was just comfortable taking out an overlord. Usually you would look for the timing where that cloak is finishing and maybe try to pick off some drones before spores go up. Cicada only making 1 spore so far, and that's, I think, a fine reaction, not an overcommitment.
Yep. The Lings are patrolling the natural, basically just waiting for a run by. It's like, try it, deal free. But Stim is on the way. We have the tank in production.
I don't like
Marine
that
production
so much.
begins.
I feel like he should be hiding the Lings. I feel like it's a better outcome if the Hellions run in. Here it's just saying you do not run in, right?
Yeah.
But if he has them back and he has that many committed, that many Zerg committed, yeah, exactly. You stand to gain all the Hellions if he does commit.
That's a fair point. Hydralisk Den starts up. So it looks like he wants to go for that, a standard Hydraling Bane setup against this, what's going to be Marine tank. If you paid attention to the game, and I assume that he did, against Starkiller, then he should be getting a read soon that this is the same exact setup that he went for on this map against Starkiller.
Yeah, he just seems to really favor that Banshee in terms of the defense for anything.
Yeah,
and
even the exact same, he didn't even have, it's the same half-full medevac that's coming with this. Except he's going to stop a little bit further up because he wants to get the creep spread.
This is much better creep spread, and that's by virtue of having so many queens.
Yeah, so it's going to take quite a few scans to chew through all of this.
Actually, it's the same creep spread, isn't it? I feel like he missed a...
I think he has more creep spread on the area towards that 4th base.
Oh, that's fair, yes.
Than Starkiller did. But as far as this area goes, yeah, he does miss the tumor on the left side, and the Queens immediately go out to replace that. So he's not going to be pushed back quite as heavily as Starkiller was, so... Just, I mean, if we're looking for differences between this and the previous game, how Cicada makes it work. Of course, he's not going Roach Hydra, which is the biggest difference of all.
Definitely. And in turn, he's going to have a better economy to work with. Oh, a lot of creep tumors being taken down there.
Yeah, he stepped up and got him right after the Queens planted them all down. And, oh, we've seen this so many times, haven't we? The rocks being used with the siege tank to try and push up.
I like that position.
Yeah, he's not going to plant it on the rocks. He wants that little bit of gap distance, I guess. The place for the Marines to retreat to.
Yeah, I suppose. They can't even be sniped by Hydras or anything like that.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. It gives them more buffer versus the Hydras.
Oh.
The safer position to retreat to.
Banshee does get taken out. And it also doesn't require vision from the medevacs in case they were...
Yeah, the tank doesn't be put on the low ground.
So that's an interesting position.
There are some Hydras and Banes on this right side. He got his Baneling speed pretty fast, so he has to be cautious about taking these fights, especially since Combat Shield is not yet complete. The Queens are going to come out and drop more tumors, but gets picked off, and it's going to have to load into these medevacs. Cannot take this fight.
Snipes one Baneling, so that's not nothing. But oh, Hellbats. Not what you want against this sort of composition, right? They lose both to Banelings and to Hydras. They're of course there to buffer for the... Oh, I don't know about attacking into 3 tanks.
Yeah, the tank line is doing a really good job.
Creep. MaSa's going to be able to chase and kill a few Hydras before they can actually get on creep. A little bit of an overextension there by Cicada.
Yeah, and MaSa's like, well, now I'm just going to jump over the river again. Get ready to try and push this west base. There's not really a lot of drones here. More Banelings are being made, but I think this is really smart. Clean up the creep, make it more difficult to defend this position.
Yeah, that river looks a lot like rocks to me.
Yeah, a river of rocks, I would say. I mean, you could compare it most days to the Los Angeles River, right? Basically the same thing as that.
Fair enough.
Rock standards for rivers have changed.
Few taxes though, few taxes in taking those rocks down. And you know, MaSa, like this army composition is kind of what you want against Hydra Bane, right? Like that's what Terrans default to these days because the expectation is Hydra Bane. Tanks are just so good against both Hydras and Banelings and Roaches if that was to be mixed in.
Yeah, so he's just trying to step forward, bait the Banelings forward into the siege tank fire, and I love the spread on the tanks. He's got a reasonable amount of fallback depth to go to, so it's just use the Marines, and then when you have to pick up and run, do so. We see Cicada's actually going to push now into that valley towards the units, but the siege tanks are all still okay. Got one of the medevacs and a few Marines, but as long as he's killing Hydras, MaSa is content to lose as many Marines as necessary to blow the space down.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point you make there too, in having that depth, that those tanks in the very back. Oh, and harassment elsewhere too. In having those tanks in the very back, even if he was looking like he's losing at the front, he can just continue to retreat, and it's really easy for the Zerg, who often has no vision in the back. MaSa wins, of course.
That's a very
to overcommit, right? Like you look at that and you're like, oh, I can actually take this fight. And the further you go, it's like more tanks firing at you, and you're like, where did those come from?
Yep. It's like you get into those situations where you're like, oh, if you jump on the tanks, but it's the one tank up front, then there's another one to the side, and then one's further back. You Lings can't just get on top of all of them together. Yep. And that's the mark of a good Terran. Spreading your tanks is never a bad idea. Nah.
Almost never, yeah. And the mark of a good Zerg would be to come from multiple angles, right? To minimize the effects of them, the AoE of them.
Get the flank. That position is hard because you have to go pretty far to get around both sides.
And then you have to time it, and then if either one of your flanks gets engaged on by the bio,
it's just dead. Yeah. Tough game. I mean, we see there, Volts just tried, Cicada tried to play a straight up game against MaSa, who is one of the best in NA. And that's what happens. MaSa is very good. I think Cicada should try to bust out something probably a little bit more cheesy, honestly. Do something more precise, more focused. I think going for a general Ling Hydra Bane against a player as good as MaSa is just not a winning strategy. Because
it's just difficult. You have to play to your strengths, to your chances to win at a given point in time, right? So you have to say, hey, if this guy is much better than me, the longer a standard game goes, the more he's going to get ahead, right? It's just every minute that passes, if he does one thing better than you, one thing faster than you, if he spends his resources a little bit better than you, the longer the game goes, the worse it is. So you have to try to mix it up, throw in some wrenches, or maybe go for an all-in, something.
Yeah. Well, we're going to see if he can bring things back in game number 2 as we are loading into Blackpink. And I think MaSa came into this group as a big favorite. We talked about it Him taking the 2-0 here would not be surprising. And then that puts us into an interesting predicament where perhaps the Zerg player will have to have a rematch against the player that got him into this winner's match. But without further ado, in the Northeast, we have the blue Terran player. He is MaSa, leading the series 1-0. And he faces off against the red Zerg in the Southwest, Cicada, also known as Volts.
With only $1,100 to his name.
Well, hopefully not to his name. Like prize winnings in StarCraft.
But prize winnings in StarCraft, yes. Yeah. Yes, Nate. With a total net worth.
His total net worth, ladies.
Ladies.
He's got the pair. Okay, yeah.
Oh, man.
He's funny. He'd appreciate that joke. It's okay.
I'm sure. All right. So pretty standard openers here.
No command center first out of MaSa. He's not playing as greedy. I don't think you would want to do that versus somebody like Cicada.
You know a little bit more about Cicada. Do you think he's the type of player that can bust out the lanes?
Yes, for sure. I 100% think so. A lot of my games against him come down to him trying to like do stuff like jumping on units with fast speed links and whatnot. I've seen the range. I've also played long games against him because like he'll be one of those guys because like I play a lot of mechs. So any Zerg that plays me knows if they want to, they can play a really long game.
Right.
And we've had those before, but at some point, you know, you get bored of it. He's got the ability to go for early attacks. I'd say we trade games. We would trade games pretty regularly when I was playing more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like he's ramped up for this event.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not playing as much. Neither have I been playing that much, Nate. Any of these players would, of course, destroy any of us.
I'm becoming more of a watcher, you know?
Yeah.
I like to go for my walks in the morning, get coffee, and watch GSL or whatever's on.
Same.
Nation Wars has been on in the mornings recently for us West Coasters, so that's been nice.
Indeed. Looking forward to that. I think it's tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it starts up again, yeah, real soon. So, all things said and done, super standard cookie cutter opener out of MaSa so far. This is just a Reaper expand into Reactor Factory. He's probably going to go Hellions Viking like we've seen him do before. Maybe he'll get the Raven follow-up instead of the Banshee this time. And I think that really the pressure is on Cicada to do something that gives him an early advantage or try to just take the game really early. So I don't think that playing straight up versus MaSa is in anybody's best interest in NA, except maybe guys like, you know, like Neeb.
Kellis or Scarlet, you know, the big
but unless you're one of the tippy top players, you don't want to just, hey, MaSa, let's just
straight
macro
punches.
game. Yeah. No.
He has like 5 arms.
Yeah. MaSa's a strong boy. Very good. Very good North American Terran player.
Yeah, and Cicada has been secluded from a third base.
Yep. Once again, that Reaper doing a good job. MaSa's really good at this. I don't know how these guys do it, where they're like, nope, my Reaper's here, you just don't get a third. They're so on top of it. The Zerg players feel this pressure. I feel like when my Reaper gets there, they've already got a 4th base.
Yeah, absolutely. So
these guys are scary, man. They're good.
Definitely. That's why I like going gasless, just so I don't have to deal with this, like chasing around the Reaper and like waiting for my link speed.
Just push with the queens.
Mm-hmm. Well, or even take the third before the Reaper arrives.
Oh, right, yeah.
But yeah, here we see that Cicada had to wait for that link speed, and this time around it's a Banshee with Cloak.
Wow, so this will be the first time we actually see him commit to that upgrade.
Yep.
In today's group. It's mostly been this like, oh, I built spores that I didn't need against a Banshee that didn't have Cloak.
And not only that, but actually Cicada only made 1 spore last game, right? He only made 1 out of the 3 spores for the initial Banshee, so he might, again, anticipate that this is a cloakless Banshee like you were mentioning.
Yeah, and that could be devastating. Could be a big mistake on his part. The Hellions are going to cross the map with the Reaper.
He's making 2 already.
Yeah, and there the spores are coming in. We do have the Carapace upgrade starting. Focusing on the Carapace upgrades at first. Okay, there's the melee. We didn't really see the attack upgrades come in for a while last game.
Yeah, it's the same setup, same opener for Cicada. A little bit of a change for MaSa. I don't know.
Yeah. He's just going to try to push him back here. Well, let's see what the Banshee can get done. I do think there's the potential for the Queens and the pressure on the third base, depending on how fast he gets his spore out there after it's completed. Just because the pressure hasn't really been there since he hasn't actually gotten Cloak for his Banshees in any of the other games.
Yeah, I like how far forward he's actually positioning the queens as well. There's, you know, little ways to enter the base without the queens repositioning. His overlord spread last game was on point. This game, it could use a little bit of work, I guess, through, especially to the right side of the map or leading into his third. He doesn't have quite as much vision, so he has to be really careful where he positions those queens. But overall, I like that they're up there at the front, ready to tell the Hellions no.
Yeah, and also helping, of course, to keep the creep spread moving at all times. You mentioned this before, but we still have the Zerglings kind of just patrolling. They're not really being pocketed at all. 2 Overlords at the front of the base, basically just watching, waiting here. The Banshee's gotten into the main base, excuse me, take a little bit of damage.
Yeah, does he have any kills? 3 kills already.
Yeah, 3 on the Banshee. Looks like it chunked a good amount of health out of one of the queens as well.
Yeah, it will survive, and those queens will probably be regenerating pretty quickly here. Second Banshee comes in, and this means you can one-shot essentially drones with both Banshees, where if you were able to find any drones off position. But he's just doing it with 1 for now, and that's the queen that was weak. So focuses it for a second, but it would be a mistake to commit, seeing as there is transfused energy available when those queens arrive.
And not bad pressure with the Banshees, of course. Can still use those for further harass and assault later on. Good amount of Zerglings on the way. Baneling speed is being added. Okay. And with no other lair tech coming in,
yeah.
Is this just going to be a really big Ling Bane assault?
I like it. How many queens are in play? Will he go for any sort of drop?
He's got 6.
I mean, he could load up like 4 queens into an Overlord, but it's a little bit late maybe to start that Overlord speed at this point. Yeah. I like this. I mean, this is what we were talking about.
He's got his 1-1 too. If he was to hit within the next 30 seconds, it'll be before upgrades are done for the Terran player at all.
If he can catch this Hellions, that could be lights out for MaSa, but he's being pretty careful, staying off of creep. Hellions have a pretty significant advantage on creep or off creep against Zerglings, but on creep, Zerglings can easily surround him.
There's a huge window of opportunity here. Those medevacs caught in the middle of the map with the Hellions.
But they managed to unload.
Yeah, I was going to say, if he had kept moving towards that base. Banelings get good connections on the Hellbats, clean those up real easy, and now I think that's going to tell Cicada, okay, that's most of your forces. I'm going to try to make this attack. There's 2 siege tanks. The Zerglings are just going to try to run right on top of everything over here. One of the tanks is surrounded. Some of the Banelings on the high ground get picked off. Just 1 more tank remains in that 3rd base for MaSa.
Yeah, that 3rd base is going to take massive damage, no pun intended. And man, those Hellions, they had no business morphing.
Yeah, just transforming in the middle of the field with Zerglings all around. Made it such easy pickings for Cicada, who is now forced to lift off on the 3rd base. Marines are going to come pouring out of that expansion. 1-1 is done for MaSa, so the upgrades have been evened out.
Yeah, I mean, if there was no Banelings, I'd be like, okay, whatever. But seeing as there's Zerglings and Banelings pretty much exclusively, and they're on top of you, you just don't morph them, right? Like, it's better even to just kite with Hellions.
Yeah, always, for sure. Or just spread them out so they soak up Baneling hits. So it looks like Cicada's going to try to make this next attack. The siege tank was put on the low ground by that 3rd base. I think it's definitely worth it. Yeah, send a few of the units here. The Banshee's going to come back to try and defend. Just needs to get the Banes on these Marines. Don't let them hit the tanks.
A huge misstep there by Cicada. He gets an excellent connection towards the end, but man, I think he was a little bit too focused on the 3rd. Still, this will be a favorable trade, but that could have been lights out.
Yeah, the Lings are going to try to get us around. With the medevac support, these Marines are buying as much time as they can. Just needs to get the depots up, rally out a wave or 2, push out 1 more time. We do have a counterattack hitting the 3rd base on the west side. The Queens are going to finally start to take some damage as MaSa loses a lot of his SCVs in the natural.
Yeah, but that counter drop is kind of the story for me at the moment. That's what's keeping this game going, and MaSa knows how to do this kind of thing. He's great under pressure.
Yeah, really holding it together. The Queens exposed out on the map. Throwing the transfuses.
We were talking about an Overlord drop. They just decided to walk, and that's some dead Queens now.
Yep, marching away. The Queens are going to get that Ling support now, though, so adding a little bit of that.
Yeah, very good targeting by MaSa as well, aiming for the Queens with the most energy. Drop is back.
And that's the thing without that actual real tech. This medevac can just zip and zap and zoop in and out.
At this point,
day.
Without even Queens, you don't even have to move. Just keep the medevacs right there.
Yeah, these Queens are like, well, maybe there's a way we can catch them out somewhere.
Sisters, let's go back.
Yeah. So Cicada's got a bunch more banelings heading up towards that natural. The supply depot wall has not been completed, but there are 2 siege tanks able to get some volleys off on these banelings.
A few too many volleys off, and I mean the banelings were kind of focused on one marine there at the ramp. Not even sure if it was intentional or not, but that allows the tanks in the back to get a few more volleys off.
And 2-2 is done for the Terran now, and I think that's where we see the bell begin to toll for the Zerg as MaSa's Marines are going to rip and tear through these Zerglings with ease.
Yeah, this was looking like such a promising game, especially after finding those Hellbats out in the middle of the map, because those were the main threat to the Lingbane army, right? Like the Hellions can kite the Lingbane army forever, or the Hellbats spread, like you said, they can tank so many more hits. Instead, they all got taken out by 5 banelings. That opens up a gigantic window, but it's now quickly closing.
Yeah. I mean, one more big wave of banelings is morphing, but the Marines have found them. Some of them will be able to finish, but those are going to be banelings that get picked off. There's no mutas to chase these medevacs, and MaSa's just going to split. He says, give me your banelings. I got more Marines coming out, and you're not going to be able to break me because I still have siege tanks at home and that Banshee.
Yeah. I mean, what do you do at this point if you're Cicada? Like you mentioned, he's out of tech. He doesn't have Hydras, he doesn't have mutas, he can't even deal with his medevacs, he has no way to scale up. MaSa's getting 3-3. Nate.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is going to be really
I like
rough.
the idea behind it. We've seen attacks like this work with the big Ling Bane where you just kill the Terran when they're taking their 3rd base, you know, and you take all the resources that you would have put towards mutas or hydras or any other like tech that you could go for, and you just say, I want more lings, more banelings, and I want to just kill you.
Yeah, MaSa has just been so clutch throughout this this entire day. I mean, just this little moves where he almost barely...
Oh, baby!
Oh
my god. One more baneling.
One more baneling would
all he needed.
Oh man.
That's
I mean, that's game.
That hurts.
Yeah.
GG.
GG.
Ooh. MaSa walks out of this group in 1st place, unsurprisingly, but that series, that last bit.
That last bit, man, there were so many little moments where it just could have gone the other way. If those like 5 banelings don't connect on the tank, but like reach the bio there at the back, if he splits a little bit faster to deal with the tank at the 3rd base, if he doesn't stop to attack that Marine at the ramp where the tanks get a couple of volleys on,
especially since that ramp was open. The depots were lowered when he went up the ramp behind the tank.
He didn't have to use banelings there.
Yeah, he could have just ran straight up and...
If the queens didn't walk there... Oh.
I mean, we're getting to the point where there's a lot of these little moments where it's like, you know?
Yeah, but you just got to choose 1 or 2 and then the game changes.
That's a very good
like
point.
you don't have to make all of those perfect, right?
I think there was a moment to get on the production there. The one you talked about with the banelings hitting the tank, because one baneling did make it past, and he killed almost all the Marines that were there. So if he had just a few more, could have actually gotten inside, but
or at least killed every SUV at the natural.
Yeah. So we have one more match to bring you, ladies and gentlemen. As MaSa advances in 1st place out of the group, Cicada will have a rematch versus Panda Bear Me. Panda Bear Me definitely still stands as the favorite coming into this group, but Cicada did 2-0 him earlier.
A lot on the line.
Got a little
Ryan
cheeky.
Mentioned it.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that series shapes up. Any final thoughts, Cats?
I mean, this is a strong storyline. I'm kind of rooting for Panda Bear Me. I don't want to see him take a step back. I think he's a very promising, very smart player. So, you know, I'm also kind of rooting for Cicada, right? Like the underdog coming out of nowhere. Challengers where stars are made.
Yeah. Man, I'm excited.
Me too.
We're going to get to that final match in just a moment, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching the World Championship Series Challenger. We'll be right back.
This poor town has seen its share of trials. Now we face a new